Twins top prospects here on the call up today. Fun farm system to talk about. Some really intriguing arms. Of course, I'm Arm Layton. He's Jack McMullen. Some big time bats at the top end of this as well. It's a fun system because this was one of the easier ones for me to identify the trends we like to talk about. Got multiple trends in this twin system. They clearly have some, I would say, archetypes they like to follow. And the first and foremost being that they love their slider cutter guys. And that might not be a scouting perspective. That might be a developmental thing. You know, when you come to our organization, these are the pitches we want you to throw. So you'll notice that we're going to talk about sliders and cutters a lot as we go through this farm system. The other thing, Jack, that I don't know if you picked up on, I'm sure you did, though, is they love their positional versatility. Yeah. They will take that high floor hit tool and positional versatility over the more volatile types of power, whatever it may be, any other archetype of offensive prospect. It seems like they are very keen on that hit tool and positional versatility. And that'll be another thing that we talk about. You'll probably notice several times through this episode, we'll say, oh, if he hits enough, he can be an everyday player, but he might be a solid utility piece. Like, they have a bunch of guys that are kind of in that bucket. And you know what? I kind of like that approach to a degree because it's a lot of high probability big leaguers. It's how you fill out a 40-man. We talk about that with some rebuilding teams. That's how they like to attack it. But, you know, some upside is refreshing too. You know, it's also nice that they have Emmanuel Rodriguez. They have Walker Jenkins. I think Brooks Lee is a hybrid of the two. So they've got a little bit of both, especially over the recent years. And that's what makes this farm system, I think, really strong.
They have 1 billion Tanner Schobels, and good for Tanner Schobel because he's the best Tanner Schobel, and he's a top 15 prospect in here. But there are so many guys where it's like, yeah, you can play short, but you can also play second. You can also play third. And think about like who their best player is when healthy. Like I'd argue that Royce Lewis is their best player, not Byron Buxton when fully healthy. And Royce is a guy that looks like a third baseman now. When he was drafted as a shortstop, he came up as a shortstop. He played center. He, hurt himself in center. Like, they're going to try everybody everywhere, I think, unless you are a guy that is clear cut in a certain spot, like a Walker Jenkins, like an Emmanuel Rodriguez. But even Brooks Lee, man, I mean, we've seen him get reps, at other places than shortstop, all over.
Yeah, and it's fun. And I think the pitching side as well, another trend, and this is more just a pat on the back for the Twins, is you notice how many guys that we are writing up here that are not drafted in the first round. I mean, to be honest, there's only one guy in the top 15 that was a top 3 round pick, and that's Charlee Soto, who's not the top pitching prospect in the system. He's not even within the top 2 or 3. What's amazing is how well that they have identified pitchers in the later rounds or in the middle rounds and developed in that regard as well. The Twins, I think, are one of the more underrated pitching development organizations, I think. And I think it's R&D. It's both, like research and development, just being able to scout, identify, and then get these guys to another level. I think we talk about a lot of the same teams, but diving into this farm, Jack, like I feel like, at least for myself, I don't talk enough about the Twins pitching identification and development. I'm curious where you stack up on that.
Well, I don't think you've talked about it because they haven't produced the top flight starting pitching prospect in quite some time. So, like, you don't really think about it. When was the last time they had an arm in the top 100?
Ooh, that's a good question.
I don't remember. Like, off the top of my head,
Marco Raya kind of in and out, depending on the year and what's going on. But yeah, I mean, it kind of depends who you ask. I mean, when they drafted Chase Petty, I think some people would have had him in there. But yeah, that is a good point. I think because they don't get the top flight, but then they get multiple 13th round picks that no one cared about that end up being potential back end of the rotation guys or solid prospects.
That's the thing. If they took an arm in the first round, like, we'd probably be talking about them, and we'll see how Charlee Soto progresses. And, maybe that guy turns into a top 100 arm, but it's going to take a couple years and ample success in the lower minors to jump into the top 100. So I think we've probably, put them to the wayside, or at least not, focused on their pitching development as much as we probably should, because there hasn't been that gateway for us to talk about it. You know what I mean? Like, hey, a guy's in the top 50. How did he become a top 50 prospect in baseball as an arm? Well, the Twins are really good at this. Oh, let's dive into other guys. I think they do a really good job with the gems, like the hidden gems, and they let their development really do the talking.
Yep. And we're going to talk about some hidden gems here in a moment, but we'll always start with the names to watch. And there's a few here, and I think a fun kind of high variance list because there's just so many different types of players here. I'll kick it to you, Jack, for the names to watch. And as always, you can follow along on these write-ups and everything with the link in the episode description, as well as on YouTube. Jack, take it away.
If you like bat speed, I'll point you in the direction of Yasser Severino. When that guy does have bat tracking data, I'm sure it's going to be unique. Yasser Severino really struggling in AAA right now. He can play some third. He can play some first. This guy led minor league baseball in homers last year. I watched him take, I think it was 101 from Paul Skeens, and he, laced a double to dead center at 113. Like, that's what he can do. Having said that, there's a lot of swing and miss here. He is, like, I guess a 3 true outcome guy. He's going to get his hacks off and he's going to hit some tape measure shots. But, I feel like every organization kind of has a Yasser Severino.
Yeah. He's fun, though. It's just one of those things. I agree. It's especially now that he's not really catching and it's a corner infield thing and he's probably more first DH. He's got to really, really hit. But when he does connect, I mean, you get just flashes of what could be.
Yeah.
I just don't know if there's enough contact there.
It's very similar to Jair Camargo, and I know that guy kind of hit twin circles at a certain point this offseason. It's like, oh, this guy hits tape measure shots. He could be a short-term answer at catcher. Like, not really, but it's really fun when he does connect, which is really enjoyable. Connor Prelip is the next guy, left-hander out of Alabama. He was so good as a freshman at Bama, 35 punch-outs, 6 walks in 21 innings. COVID shuts it down. He really hasn't thrown since then. He's got 6 2/3 professional innings under his belt. I think it's 34 innings post high school graduation for Connor Prelip at this point. And he was a 2021 draftee or 2022 draftee. It was Tommy John, and then now it was an internal brace to shore up that repaired UCL after he only lasted 6 2/3. When Prelip gets back on the hill, he's a guy to watch because he's 93, 94, really good slider. But again, we just haven't seen enough Connor Prelip to make him top 15.
And good command, too. And we'll see how that looks when he comes back from another elbow procedure. But it just sucks because he's so talented, and it has really nothing to do with anything else other than whether he can stay healthy or not. I think if he was not injured, if we're not looking at a guy that has continued to be on the shelf, he's easily in the top 15 here. And he's a guy that I think Twins fans and the Twins organization are very excited about if he's available. So hopefully he will be, because again, this is a guy that I think in this organization could develop really nicely.
And there are guys that have had success on the heels of like back-to-back elbow procedures here. Like, I'm thinking about Drew Rasmussen in Tampa. Like, that happened to him when he was at Oregon State. So this is a guy that like has put together a good career and a good MLB career on the heels of compounding issues with your UCL. I think about Daniel Hudson as well, but that was after he debuted in Major League Baseball. So there is precedent to back-to-back procedures like this. But again, like, it's tough for everybody. And I know that it's common, but it's tough for everybody.
It helps that he's getting it out of the way younger, though, too. It's always a little bit higher chance of coming back, stronger than before, or at least stronger than a lot of other guys do after this. When it's spread out and the second surgeries in your 30s or late 20s, it's a little different.
You just never want to see the second one come literally right after the first one. Like, that's very tough.
Yeah.
Kalai Rosario is the next one, outfielder in AA. Much like Yasser Severino, if you like big hacks, 90th percentile exit velocity of 108 miles an hour. Here's the thing about Rosario, and you pointed me kind of to these data points. Like, the K rate's lower, but the ground ball rate's higher. So, like, the flaw in the offensive approach has changed thus far in 2024, but there is still a flaw in the offensive approach. That being said, he can hold his own in the outfield, and he can really connect. This could be that power hitting bench outfielder.
Yeah, and still just 21. So you're hoping that he continues to to make some adjustments, continues to develop. I mean, he was a Hawaiian high schooler, so it's always going to be a guy that's going to take a little bit longer to, develop in general. But for me right now, you nailed the big aspect of what kind of kept him out of the top 15, because he's one of the guys that was pretty close and considered in there, is just when you are adjusting to now not strike out as much and your swing becomes much steeper, and you can see like it's a really flat swing now and everything's on the ground. Yeah, he's hitting it hard, and he's still going to strike out a little bit. Now he's like kind of caught in this no man's land, and it's okay. You got to kind of get there, and it's not going to just be, one big leap where you cut the strikeout rate. Sometimes there's, a step in the middle that doesn't look too pretty to get there. But he's kind of in that middle zone right now. And when Rosario's not hitting home runs, which he's not right now, I think he only has 2 on the year, in the swing path just looks kind of brutal, to be honest, right now. It's hard to get behind that, but still young, really talented, crazy bat speed, as you mentioned. There's still so much to like here, and he could put it all together. But right now, it's just a little too far off still.
Yeah. Another guy is Ricardo Olivar, a catcher in high A right now. I really liked this guy when I dove in, and he was a very low-priced IFA guy, 20 grand in 2019. He really struggled at the complex. He didn't debut in 19. COVID wiped out the minor leagues. So he debuts in 21. He goes to the complex. He really struggles. But then in 22, he's really good. And then in 23 in low A, he's really good. And now he's got a 162 WRC plus when we wrote this up on Tuesday. Like, he's been good level by level offensively.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny. The data looks pretty good too. All of a sudden, you might have a little diamond in the rough here. And I feel like on the catching side, you end up finding a lot more of these like low IFA diamonds in the rough, but good approach, above average contact rates. The EVs are average as a catcher. I don't know a ton about the defensive ability there, but if it's anything decent, like that's definitely a potential piece. So, I think that's definitely a name to watch in this system.
Yeah. Andrew Morris, another guy, he was an earlier round pick out of Texas Tech. And Morris, he was 84 and a third last year between both single A levels. You walked just 19 guys in 84 and a third. He had an ERA under 3. He's in high A again, which is kind of interesting for a college arm. You would think he'd be in double by now, but not the case. Andrew Morris is interesting. Like, what do you think of his arsenal? I kind of see a guy that's like limited to 2 pitches.
So Morris is interesting because like it's a really high release. And, when you had that high release, even if you're generating pretty good carry, you're just not going to get as much whiff as you get to the higher levels. But right now he is getting a good amount of whiff on the fastball. It does kind of seem like right now he's going with the kitchen sink approach. But when you look at like the big league situation, it's probably going to be a lot more fastball slider at the highest level or fastball changeup. But I don't know. I think he can kind of hit you with the kitchen sink approach. I just don't know if all of those pitches are going to work at the highest level. So I'm curious like what he's going to really lean into. And it seems like fastball slider probably makes the most sense.
Next guy for us is Andrew Cassetti, another guy, catcher, first baseman. This guy's a hitter. Cassetti to me is very Ben Rice with the Yankees, where he's just gonna hit. Andrew Cassetti is a guy that played, I think 4 years at St. Joe's in Philly. So A10 catcher. You never know how the Atlantic 10 baseball is going to convert into pro ball. But this guy last year among catchers was 3rd in OPS. Tyrone Lorenzo of the Dodgers in low A led all minor league catchers in OPS last year. Samuel Basayo, and I think everybody knows that name, Baltimore, that catcher, is he was 3rd in OPS among catchers. But Cassetti was 2nd, man. Like, this guy just hit a 960 OPS. Granted, he was 23 in low A and high A, but you hit, and the bat seems like a big league caliber bat.
Yeah, I like the bat a lot, and I know he's kind of got off to a slower start this year, swinging and missing a little bit more this year as well, but starting to heat up. I like the bat, and if he can catch a bit in a pinch and do that as well, I think there's a big league role here still, but he's going to need to cut down on the Ks and continue to slug at the higher levels. But it's been hard to argue against the offensive production so far.
Yep. Matt Canarino, next guy. He and Prelip kind of Spider-Man memeing right now, but Canarino, friend of the show, Canarino is so ridiculously good when he's on the mound. It's about 80 innings in pro ball, ERA under 1.5. Opponents are hitting $130. He's got 135 punch outs. Problem is he's only thrown about 80 professional innings.
Yeah. It really doesn't matter what level he's at. I mean, the stuff plays anywhere, and we've seen that, and he gets crazy amounts of whiff. And one of my favorite interviews we've had in the last few months, because I mean, you could just tell he's a really smart pitcher, very cerebral with the way he approaches the game. Also, just a really nice guy. And it's what makes the injury so much more frustrating, because you could just sense how badly he wants to be out there. And he's a guy that you really don't even need to waste bullets in the minor leagues anymore. Once he's looking like he's built up enough to come out of the bullpen and ready, I think you could throw that guy right into the bullpen at the very least. Even the rest of his development could be had as a middle reliever, and you could almost treat him like a Rule 5 pick, because I think that's how good the stuff is. That if you put him in these, ease him in at the big league level in favorable situations, I think by the end of the year, you could start putting him in like some higher leverage spots and feel good about it because of how good the stuff is.
Well, and at this point, like, starting pitching is probably, that ship has probably sailed on Canarino. Like, and listen, understandably so. And, we're looking at Mason Miller, kind of same deal. He was so gross. He couldn't stay healthy. Now look at him. And, that value is immense. So Canarino doesn't throw 103, but Canarino gets outs at a very, very high level in minor league baseball.
And still gets really ugly swings like Mason Miller does too. And I think will at the highest level.
Yeah. Darren Bowen, another guy that, I close my eyes and I see reliever down the line, but a really good one. Darren Bowen was part of the return for Jorge Polanco in January. Opponents have hit under 200 against him each of the past 2 years. Been bit by the gopher ball, like multi-run homers a couple of times so far this year, which is why you see the ERA jutted up a bit. He does struggle to locate at points, but Bowen has a really good fastball slider combination, it seems.
Yeah, and it seems to be the command has been better this year for sure. So again, this guy in this system, I'm definitely intrigued, and he's already throwing that cutter more, and he's got the slider. The feel for the changeup is a bit inconsistent at this point, but it's flashed. This guy's got a good arsenal, man, and I think reliever's probably the safest bet, but he might surprise some folks and end up being a nice swing man or back into the rotation type. If he can continue to, I think, I'd extend this trend of throwing more strikes and having a better feel for his arsenal. One other name I wanted to throw in there that I'd forgotten about, because literally I don't think he's on any top prospect list anywhere, but he continues to come up for me as I'm watching games and as I'm going through data and going through game logs. Rubel Cespedes, that was not much of a prospect really at all going into this year. He had a 711 OPS in low A last year. He's a third baseman. And that was his second year in low A. But this year in high A, Cedar Rapids, he has been awesome. He's at a 958 OPS. He's hitting the ball harder than ever, a 90th percentile, almost at 105. Contact rates are plus so far. He's striking out below 20%. He's walking at a 12% clip. I mean, when you got a 331, 414, 544 slash line, usually those data points are going to have to be pretty good. But as an older guy in high A, sometimes it's just a better, more advanced hitter than the competition. There's some clear jumps in the batted ball data, and he's still 23. All of a sudden, Rubel Cespedes looks like he could be, a name to watch in this system as well. All right. We will jump into the top 15 here, which starts with Yasser Mercedes. Mercedes was one of the top international free agents in the 2022 class, had a great start in the DSL, and then first year at the complex wasn't great. The Twins all opted to have Mercedes actually repeat the complex this year, and he looked a lot better. He hits the living crap out of the ball. He can run. He has a good chance to stick in center. So that made me more willing to overlook, I think, some of these swing path issues that he has. Very similar swing components that we were talking about with Kalai Rosario. And when you have a player that's a little bit younger, that's hitting the ball at times even harder and can give you defensive value, I'm going to go with Mercedes, even though Rosario is proven to be able to at least hit in high A, and Mercedes is now proving that he can hit at the complex, and we'll have to show that he can hit in low A. He's made those improvements in terms of his approach. I think that's been the big jump for him as he's been lighting up the complex so far. He's already hit a home run over 111 miles an hour to dead center for a 19-year-old. That's pretty crazy. So, I mean, if he can stick in center, even if the hit tool is below average, the plate discipline continues to trend towards average. You have above average power, above average speed, and above average defense in center field. There's a role for you out there. At the very least, a guy that can take the shorts out of a platoon and give you good defensive value as a fourth outfielder and a power hitting one, but a guy that might be able to slug enough and get on base enough to be an everyday player.
Well, and it seems like he picks his spots on the base paths a bit better than Rosario does too, which, kind of in turn creates a bit more value that Rosario doesn't have. Like a 55 runner probably plays up because he's a high efficiency base dealer.
Yeah. And he likes to go. You can tell that there's this level of like locked in and trying to make that a part of his game. I think I like seeing young players that realize, hey, I'm not going to hit 300. Let me try to impact the game in as many ways as I can to take as much pressure off of. And that's like, I think one of the words that you'll hear me use a lot is like pressure on this tool. Because if you're deficient in an area or two, you really got to be proficient in another area. And that's where that pressure just continues to, accumulate on that hit tool. So if you can just do things across the board, it takes pressure off of that 30 hit tool that Mercedes may end up with. We go to 14. And this is it. I want to get this guy on the podcast, man. I know he's hurt right now, but Cory Lewis, he's bringing the knuckleball back. And Matt Waldron is too, but I'm giving anyone who's willing to throw a knuckleball credit for bringing the knuckleball back, right? Like It's not one person. I think it's still so obscure that anyone who does it is bringing it back. And Cory Lewis is part of that effort. He's got a nice pitch mix across the board that I think would play well at the lower levels. But when we're looking at him as a big league arm, it's the fastball that is average because he's just 90 to 92, but he gets about 22 inches of vert. You might be like, oh my gosh, that's incredible. It's also from like a 6'6" release height. So for that reason, it doesn't play up quite as much as you'd think. It's still above average carry though, so that's great. But the knuckleball is crazy, man. When's the last time you've seen a knuckleball at like 84, 85? I don't know what Waldron throws his at, but
high speed, like 80, 81. I saw in high A when Waldron first started throwing the knuckler, I saw a couple at 83, 84, and I was just like, whoa. But like, I kind of like that the two knuckleballs that are back in Major League Baseball are high speed knuckleballs. And that was the R.A. Dickey thing too. Like Dickey was not throwing the floater. It was not the classic Tim Wakefield floater. I think the Tim Wakefield floater, like that's kind of gone. I feel like hitters could just sit back and almost treat it like a position player. And yeah, like obviously it's harder to pick up, but at the end of the day, man, if you've got that thing moving at 84 miles an hour, like, dude, that's a final boss type pitch.
Yeah. And it has been for Lewis because, and I think you bring up a good point because like guys might not hit it for home runs as much when it's a slower one, but these guys are so good. I mean, they're reacting to Yohan Duran 101 mile an hour splinkers. So they're going to be able to adjust to a knuckleball that's coming in at 70 and at least poke it the other way or whatever. Sure, you'll get whiffs, but I do think you have to throw it harder now. And that's what these guys are doing, because I think a lot of people have been discouraged from throwing the knuckleball for that exact reason. But now if you throw it in the 80s and he's averaging 84 with it, it's become a disgusting pitch for him. And that's the cool thing is like, that's his out pitch. He's got a slider that flashes above average. I think at the big league level, it'd be more of an average slider. And then he's got, fringy curveball and a changeup. Both of those are usable and he can mix in. But it really looks like fastball can be big league average. Knuckleball is an above average pitch. Slider can be big league average. And that could be a guy that ends up being a 5-starter for you. And I think the knuckleball adds enough uniqueness to him that I think can make him a 5. He's on the shelf right now with a shoulder impingement, unfortunately. So hopefully he will be back sometime in the next month or two. I don't know if we really have a timeline there. But what I love about Lewis's knuckleball as well is he gets the whiff. I think it was something along the lines of like 25% in zone whiff. But then beyond that, the quality of contact was garbage against him. Like for hitters, like they were putting it on the ground a ton. And even when they were hitting it, it was the average exit velocities were atrocious. Like hitters were just not barreling anything. We'll see if that translates still against AA and AAA hitters. It's something to monitor. But when I'm watching these knuckleballs, man, like I think that can play anywhere. So he might be a 5-starter swingman type. I think it's a Matt Waldron type of cloth where he could have stretches where he looks like a guy that could, sit in the rotation. Then there might be stretches where it's like, oh yeah, that's why that guy, was kind of viewed as a swingman type. And regardless, that's still a valuable piece to have.
Yeah, so Waldron settled in at about 77 with his knuckler. So this is a harder knuckler. Also, Waldron is like a kind of big guy. This dude's like objectively bigger. Waldron's at 6'2" and kind of a thick cut 6'2". This is 6'5", 220, which is why he can run that knuckler up to 84. Last question on Cory Lewis. How'd you grade a knuckleball?
I had a moment where I was sitting there and I'm like, what do I do? I'm actually I'm so glad you asked that. Because that's the first knuckleball grade I've put. I didn't do them at Waldron.
Yeah, I was just like, okay, you have other slider like what a 50 slider looks like. You know what a 70 slider looks like. You don't know what a 40 knuckler looks like.
To be totally honest, any visual stuff out the window. Like, I'll look at sliders and look at the break and we talk about it and I'll send you clips and, we talk about the shape and, of course you have the data, which always is going to give you the baseline, but we also want to add the human perspective, the tunneling, how the pitch looks, how it works off of his other stuff. With the knuckleball, I just look straight at the data and of course the swings that he's getting too. That was probably the only like eye test aspect of it. But I was looking at it, I'm like, okay, if this wasn't a knuckleball from a data perspective, how does this look like it's going to perform at the higher levels? And I mean, the whiff rates and the quality of contact were terrible. And then I was looking at, just some of the swings that he was getting. I'm like, that's an above average big league pitch. But I had a moment where I'm like, how do I grade this thing? Because I have no other pitches to compare it to.
I'm just thinking something as simple as like batting average against. Opponents are hitting a $120, it's a 70. Opponents are hitting 300, it's a 35. Like, I don't know.
We just boil this thing down and make it easy. I mean, it wasn't far off from that, but I think it's going to play, especially at 84. I mean, that is insane to be able to throw it that hard. Yeah. Number 13, Brandon Winokur. A very fascinating prospect. We talk about a lot of the higher floor guys in the system. They swung for the fences with Winokur, an outfielder who they took in the 3rd round of the 2023 draft. Gave him $1.5 million to sign him away from UCLA. I think a guy that people were kind of expecting to potentially go to UCLA because, yes, tooled up. He's 6'6". He was playing shortstop and center field in high school with a 60 run tool, a 60 arm. And you're like, oh my gosh, I can dream on everything. But the hit tool is just, a little bit concerning, and understandably so. He's a teenager who's 6'6". And I think teams probably were leaning towards, hey, let's let this kid go to UCLA. The Twins, I think, really liked where their draft class settled in, and they had an opportunity to swing for the fences a little bit, and they did that and were able to sign Winokur. I think the early results have kind of validated the good and the bad, which is, I think, a good thing if you sign, if you drafted him, if you're the Twins, because that you want to see it kind of play out the way you were imagining, which is, yeah, there's been swing and miss. Yeah, the approach has been a bit frustrating, but man, he's been fun to watch cover ground in center field. Man, when he connects, he's crushing baseballs, and he's still holding his own in low A as a very raw, high school type of profile here. He's fun. The swing definitely needs work. And that's something that, will come. But the fact that he's holding his own with a swing that definitely needs work is interesting. They're still playing him at shortstop. They should probably stop doing that soon. I like him a lot more in center field. A lot more. And I think they will stop doing that soon. But there's ingredients here, Jack, for him to be a really unique player.
I mean, when was the last time you saw a 6'6", like too long for his own good, outfielder sign out of high school, or like shortstop sign out of high school? Like a hitter this big with this long of levers signing out of high school. You don't
James
see
Wood.
Wood. I guess, but like Wood was just so. I think Wood is just cut from a different cloth. Where like
I agree. That's kind of the point. Is like you don't really see just these guys that should be like wings in the NBA. Getting drafted in the first round of high school.
Projects go to college. Like Jaden McDaniels, I think he's in like year 4 in the NBA, and like now he's good. It took a while, and like it also took a year at college. I'm just thinking about high school projects, like guys that are this tall and this long. They always go to college, and I'm thinking about Spencer Jones. Like that's the one that you'll always think of, I'm sure, but like those guys always go to college. So good for him for hopping in and like, hey, if anybody can develop it, it seems to be Minnesota. But man, like I feel like there's a lot of development that has to go into this. And this is probably the farthest off ETA you have in the top 15 list.
For sure. And that's why it's kind of just a wait and see situation. But there's a positive aspect to that wait and see, which is what can be. And the fact that he's not getting blown up right now, I think says a lot. And I think is, a lot of players in his position would still probably be at the complex. And I think that's the aspect that makes him really fascinating. You think about like an Aaron Judge, and we're not comparing him to any of these guys, but again, it's just like the size. Aaron Judge was like, had a horrible swing at Fresno State. Like these tall guys, it's a process. So for him to be further along in this process than a lot of other guys, again, he doesn't have the raw talent of some of those other dudes, but he is a great athlete and he is a really unique player. So like this is a guy that with a few mechanical changes and just some maturity, I wouldn't be shocked if he's like their breakout guy in the system next year or something like that. Like he is the guy that can be that type of player.
Yeah.
The total opposite at number 12. And again, it's not an indictment, but the total opposite at number 12. Austin Martin checks in at number 12. He is a really interesting one, and I realize I got to update that. He's a number 5 overall pick for Toronto. But Austin Martin, he's settled in now to, I think, what is proven to be a guy that's going to be a high probability big leaguer. And it's already been in the big leagues, but I mean, a high probability, like stick around and hang out there. The shortstop who could, be hit at the top of the order for a big league team, like that's not going to happen. Right. And I've always been more of a skeptic on Austin Martin. I even going out of the draft, I didn't really see it all because I didn't see the defensive aspect and there was just never enough power. And I felt like people were just trying too hard to see the power at times. But now I think he's settled into what he can be and figured out, okay, this is the player that's going to keep me in the big leagues. This is the profile that's going to keep me into the big leagues, which is an above average hit tool, elite plate discipline, above average speed and the ability to grab bags. And I think at a pretty efficient and decent clip and the ability to play defense at several different spots, now turning into a decent center fielder. Of course, he can play a good left. He can play second base. This is that, high on base positional versatility guy.
Everybody needs a Santiago Espinal, and they do things a little bit differently. Like Martin has, doesn't have like the defensive ability on the infield that Espinal has. Martin has better plate discipline than Santiago Espinal. And like Espinal, I know he was flirting with an all-star nod in 2022. I want to say that was, that was kind of like fever dream. Austin Martin won't ever be that, but Espinal won't ever be that again. And, everybody needs like that bench utility guy. I think Austin Martin has settled into bench utility. And does that stink for a former number 5 overall pick? Relatively speaking, sure. But at the end of the day, man, like you're going to get big league checks. And that's really what you want here. And I think the Twins have a valuable bench utility piece here in Austin Martin.
Yeah, I think if you're building out that 40-man roster and even the 26-man active roster, like you need players like this for sure. And yeah, I think there's a world where if Martin can find the gaps enough, he's a guy that can end up, playing 3-4 times a week and being productive for you, hitting lefties really well and doing, settling into that type of role. I see Schobel more into that role, which we're going to talk about in a moment, because I just see a little bit more impact and particularly the ability to crush lefties. But I think with what he brings in the base stealing department, the versatility and things like that, if he can just find doubles a bit more, he's going to get on base. He's not going to strike out. There could be a second division regular situation here. He could be a trade piece that he ends up playing, every day for that second tier team, or he could be that platoon utility type of role for a first division team. And again, those guys will have nice careers and always carry decent value. Yeah. Number 11 is Tanner Schobel. Well, from a defensive perspective, is really fun. Infielder, already in AA, third round pick in 2023. And that leads us right into number 11, who is Tanner Schobel. Infielder, already in AA, third round pick in 2022. And he can do a lot of different things defensively. I actually think he doesn't get enough credit for his ability at shortstop, where I think he can actually play at a good level there. of course, because of the type of profile he is, he's never going to be an everyday shortstop. But the fact that he can plug in there and play a good defensive, or at least a solid defensive shortstop, I think is extremely valuable. He can play a really good second base. He can also play third. The offensive side is interesting because he demolishes fastballs and, I mean, really rarely misses fastballs, but sliders have chewed him up. And that's the interesting thing. He kind of leaves the zone a bit too quickly. And I've noticed that with a fair amount of Twins hitters where you can get a little bit spinny. The path kind of results in kind of coming off of these sliders a bit. But he's got great plate discipline, or at least really good. He's run a chase rate below 20% as a pro. The recognizing the spin aspect, it was a little shaky at first. It's gotten better, and that hedges some of the issue against the sliders. But if your biggest issue is right-handed sliders, I think the clear role at the highest level, if he doesn't rectify that, is short side of the platoon utility guy. He demolishes lefties. Like, he has put up big numbers all the way going back to college, but all the way through pro ball against left-handed pitching because of the way he hits fastballs and basically anything breaking towards him. So you have a guy that can play great second base, good third base, solid shortstop, and crushes lefties, holds his own against righties. I think Schobel is that actual really solid platoon piece that you could either split with somebody at a certain spot or just rove around the infield, and he's going to give you defensive value at every spot as well.
He had some pop at Virginia Tech, and you've got a 35 on his game power. You think that pop was just metal?
I think it was a little bit of just metal, and I think it was also a little bit of just him being better than a lot of the competition, and being able to let it eat a little bit earlier. I think the power's fine. I don't know if that's going to be his game in terms of like the exit velocities aren't horrible. They're slightly below average, but it just seems like his path is just more geared for line drives, and that's fine. I think that's who he should be. But maybe lefty against lefties, he'll slug a bit more.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
I love the ability to hit lefties, the ability to walk, the positional versatility. Again, it might be difficult to dream on a regular here, but I think he's a guy that ends up in the lineup 3-4 days a week and is extremely productive because he's been put in situations to succeed and puts up big numbers against lefties. And everyone's going to say, oh, play him more. And they're like, oh, no, we know what's going to happen if we play him against these certain righties. He's really good in this role, and we're going to keep him in this role. And I think that's pretty valuable, especially for a team that, again, I think you look at the big league level, that the injuries that they've had, a lot of the turnover that they've had, it's just good to be able to plug somebody in at 3 different infield spots, know that he's going to be solid. And on top of that, you can put him into these spots against left-handed pitching and know that he might excel in that role.
So I guess if you had to identify the one main thing that he does better than Martin, like, oh, they both fit a same role, why do you have Schobel over Martin? Why do you prefer Schobel in that utility role over Martin? Answer is what?
Great question. Can play shortstop. I think gives you value at third base, gives you value at second base. I like Schobel at shortstop a little bit more than I like Martin in center, I think. Okay. And then that's one side of it. And then Schobel's offensive upside. We're looking at a guy that's about 2 years and change younger, and already hitting the ball harder, and there might be a little bit more in there. And then with him, I think just a very clear ability to demolish lefties, whereas Martin's just kind of floating around a little bit offensively. Yeah. I see Schobel fitting into the archetype of the role better than Austin Martin does, and he's younger. But it's a great question. I also think he hits the ball a little bit harder, so I have a bit more hope that he can be that doubles machine than an Austin Martin. All right, number 10 is CJ Culpepper, right-handed pitching prospect, a 13th rounder. And this is where it starts to begin here, where we talk about some of these Twins identifications. And the other funny thing with these Twins arms is that it's not the Rays situation where like you've got somebody and like every different angle of like that you would have, like high, low, medium. It's really just with the Twins, it's just funky arm actions. I think it's more of an opportunity for them where teams may not like the short arm action of a CJ Culpepper. And we're going to talk about a couple other guys as well that have kind of funky deliveries, and that might put some teams off. And the Twins are probably saying, hey, no, but I mean, the stuff looks good. We think we can get more out of this guy. Like, we'll grab him in the 13th round. Culpepper throws almost like he's a catcher. And it's really unique. And I think when you were seeing him maybe do that after moving from the bullpen to the rotation at California Baptist and seeing him throw 88 to 90 from this short arm delivery. Like, is that going to tick up? Like, what is there to dream on here? Well, it ticked up. He's sitting now 93, 94 with the same short arm action. And then he's got the kitchen sink approach. He's got the slider, which is nasty from that slot. He just rips it. He's got the cutter, of course, like everybody else. He's got a curveball that flashes average, and he's got a changeup that has flashed average in the past, and it's just not been there for him the last year and a half. So kind of a fringy pitch there. But the command has continued to look like it can be average as well. It's a unique delivery. It's a cool arsenal, though, and I think you've got a high probability 5-starter here in Culpepper, and maybe room for a little bit more.
So my initial thought watching CJ Culpepper was, this is the bullpen catcher that comes in when you're down 10 in the 8th. Like, that's what he looks like. My second thought, after I thought about it for a little bit, was he throws like a quarterback. Does he not? Like, he's got that. It almost looks like he's trying to spiral the baseball, which is why the slider is so good. But, like, some quarterbacks, they'll go with the classic, like, hey, ball pointing backwards, and they'll sling it a bit. But how many college quarterbacks have you seen that hold the ball, like, right next to their helmet and then just let it go in, like, the West Coast system? That's who CJ Culpepper is, man. Like, he's actually gripping this ball, and his arm is, like, at an acute angle, and he's holding the ball next to his ear, like he's trying to hear the seashell, like the sounds of the ocean in it. And then all of a sudden he snaps it off. I have no idea how a changeup works from there. He throws one. I don't know how.
I agree. It seems like he's just fits to a T of what the Twins want, which is that supinator that can just kind of snap everything from his ear. But he has flashed the ability to throw changeups. So that might be part of the reason why it's not been there at all for him this year. Is that
his arm really action is not conducive to it whatsoever.
No. So, and that's why I think that pitch might end up getting scrapped. But what I love is you've got 2 fastballs. You've got a 4-seamer and you've got a sinker. What's interesting though is it's not the riding 4-seamer. It's a weird one. The only fastball that I could think of that's similar shape-wise is Max Myers of a starter. It's the gyro fastball. And I think it's because of his release where he's not going to be able to spin it the same way in terms of backspin. So it's like 9 inches of vert and like 3 inches of horizontal. So that means it's just going to kind of drop. And that's not great for swing and miss at the top, but it is good for ground balls. But then he also has a sinker. So it's like, okay, well, that's a little redundant. Well, not really, actually, because the gyro fastball just drops downwards. There's only 3 inches of horizontal there. The sinker gets 13 inches of horizontal. So he's got kind of this downward dropping fastball, and then he's got this 2-seam sinker action that runs 13 inches arm side. So from his ear, it's kind of hard to know what's what. And then he's got a cutter going the other way. And then he's got the slider that goes even further the other way. So it's this kind of interesting mix of 2 pitches that go a little bit these ways and then 2 others that go further the other way. And then, he'll mix in the curveball. If he could find a way to mix in a pitch with a little bit more ride, that would be awesome. But I think he can end up being that ground ball guy that gets enough swing and miss, and throws enough strikes. It's very unique, though, from that like quarterback release, as you mentioned. But another success story, it looks like. And he's held that uptick now dating back to last year, right? He jumped up to 94, and he's been holding 94 all this year, too. Closer to 95, actually, this year. So there's a lot of reason to believe that he's going to hold that uptick now. Number 9. And people might be like, oh, really? 9? I'm going to make my case here. Gabriel Gonzalez, outfielder in high A right now, came over in that Jorge Polanco trade. I like him. I like the feel to hit, but relative to everybody else, maybe I don't like him. Jack, we'll get into it. You want to start with the pros? Should we start with the pros? Because he's the number 9 prospect in the system. Like, it's just relative to everybody else. Like, I know that this is going to be the common question that we get is like, why is he 9? I've seen him on top 100 lists. Blah blah blah.
Yeah, because I feel like if we started with the cons, the pros would feel disingenuous. So let's start with the pros.
Really good hit tool, and just ridiculous hand-eye, and I think that's why he is regarded as a high-ranking prospect. He can get to a lot of different pitches. I think where there's a interesting aspect that I've been kind of waiting to see on is the power. And I know we've talked about it in the past. Modesto, where he was last year, is not we talked about it. Like, I was like, is Modesto a home run environment? Like, no, not really. Not at all. And he hit a lot of home runs there. I think he had 18 of them there. So that was the interesting thing, because the EVs are not great. They're fine, but he was hitting home runs there. So that was an interesting aspect where I think people are looking at his build and, they're saying, oh, well, there's power here too. So you got hitting power. We're seeing this year where the power has not quite been there. So I don't know how he was slugging the way that he was slugging. Might have been just the classic, outslug the EVs. You can backspin them a bit better than most other guys. But then so far this year has not been the case. He's been fine offensively, but everything's been on the ground. It's a 57% ground ball rate. And the EVs are about the same, maybe slightly up. What's standing out to me, though, this year is, he's hitting on the ground more, but he is making as much contact as ever. 92% in zone contact rate so far this season. And I believe he's on the shelf now. He got hurt on the first of the month, so we haven't been able to see him for a little bit now. But even in those first 20 games, just not swinging and missing at all. And for the most part, just being able to put the ball in play pretty consistently. He had only struck out 8 times through his first 73 plate appearances. So that's the pros. You love the hand-eye and the ability to make contact. There's enough impact there where you can at least dream on a lot of doubles and enough homers in the right environment. Yeah. But there's the other shortcomings too. I'm just curious what you think from the power perspective there, because it was interesting to see him hit that many in Modesto. And then, you look at the EVs, you look at the batted ball data, and you're like, well, how's he doing that? Even the ground ball rate then was higher. It was 49%, but he was still able to hit those 18 home runs last year. What do you think about that? Like, I thought it was kind of just surprising to me, but it was maybe an instance of, again, a guy that can backspin it a little bit better than most.
Yeah, I mean, I also think it's necessary. Like, I think a guy that is listed at 5'11", 225, like, he looks almost thicker than that somehow. Like, power's necessary, because if he's just like a slap it around guy, like, he's a 30 runner. He doesn't run well enough to make that valuable. And you got to play good defense. We're going to get into that here in a moment. But like, I mean, I just think it's a necessity. Like, you have to be a 15 to 20 homer threat if you have this build. And, like, it was really cool that he did that in Modesto. That was low A. So we need to see it happen, I think, in the upper minors. So, Cedar Rapids is great, but like, let's get him to Wichita and let's see what happens. Let's get him to St. Paul. Let's see what happens.
Yep. And that's exactly it, right? It's like, because if you're this profile, and that's my thing with him, and I'll kind of lead us into it, is, okay, corner outfielder, you got to slug. You got to slug for sure.
And listen, is he a good corner outfielder?
Okay, well, this is one of the more frustrating video dives I did. He's got a good arm. He's a 30 runner. What really frustrated me with him, and by the way, it's a back strain that has him on the shelf right now for the last 3 weeks.
That stinks.
The effort out there, and this goes all the way back to last year. If you're going to be the nonchalant, like catch the ball at your hip kind of guy, which I don't care. Like, if you catch the ball, I don't care if you did it barehanded.
You just got to catch it. You have to catch it if you're doing
that. Several drops, just point blank drops. Some really tough reads out there. And then, with the bad read, not having the closing speed, but also sometimes just not having like the effort to close in on it. Yeah. To me, it looked disinterested out there at times. And then even when he is interested, it's like he still looks like he's fighting for his life at times out there. I know that the environment sometimes is not great to pick the ball up out there in right field where he was playing, but there was a lot of frustrating reads, not a lot of closing speed, and then some frustrating, just lackadaisical type of defense out there. And if you're a corner guy that has to slug, we're talking about doing all the little things to make yourself as short up of a profile as possible. If you're not going to slug as much as, maybe people were hoping, play great defense, get on base. And that's the other aspect for me too, is he's an aggressive hitter. And I mean, it was a 37% chase rate last year. He had cut that down this year, which was good to see through 18 games, but still over 30% in the chase rate. Seeing that and then watching the defensive video, I was like, okay, this is frustrating. And honestly, kind of made me understand, because I think a lot of people were surprised to see Gabriel Gonzalez included in that Jorge Polanco trade, right? Like, people were like, whoa, why would they move off of him? Maybe they saw some of these yellow flags, Jack, and said, okay, hey, maybe maybe this is not quite the player that we thought. Again, could be a big leaguer, could be a nice role player, might hit enough to be an everyday guy. But there's a lot of things he needs to figure out before he's a guy that I think is a top 100 prospect and a top guy in my system. Some of them are controllable, and some are things that are going to need to come with development.
Seattle didn't need two big ticket prospects fighting for their life in right field. Like, I think they said, you know what, we're going to take the one with the way better bat. And they did that in Montes. And they were like, you know what, he's going to be the one that we try and shove out in right field and see if, he's playing Dance Dance Revolution out there with any fly ball that comes out. With Gonzalez, like, I don't know. They probably just looked at him and said, okay, like, you're struggling in a corner. And, we may not see the offensive profile match our other outfield options right now. So we kind of view you as surplus, which is what made him make sense in that Jorge Polanco deal. Now, he can absolutely turn into like a very solid bat to ball right fielder, just not for Seattle because their organization did not require his presence really.
No, and a good get in that trade. I mean, what's
good
Polanco doing, right? And Bowen was a good get too. I think they did well in the trade, and you hope that you can develop Gonzalez. If he's 15 home runs hitting for average, I think the key then at that point is, can you cut down on the chase? And I think he can as he develops. But then can you also not be a liability in the outfield? So there's things across the board, but he's still young. He's 20 years old. He's going to be 20 for the entirety of the season. So there's some maturity, both from just like the baseball itself standpoint. I think sometimes the way he plays out there that can come along, but he's still an intriguing piece and a solid one at that.
Yeah.
Number 8. And I want to make sure I'm saying you said it's Luke Keaschall, right? Not Luke Keaschall.
I think it's Keaschall. Yeah. Not Keaschall. It's Keaschall.
Yeah. Luke Keaschall. I have fallen in love with the profile here more and more the more I've been able to watch this guy. And here's the interesting thing. We talk about positional versatility. Keaschall's problem is actually that I don't think they know where he's going to play yet because he's not really great anywhere at this point. But and then this might be a name that evokes maybe some bad memories, but I get Spencer Steer vibes here, and that's a good thing, right? Like that's a very good thing. Yes. If you're a Twins fan, just hopefully you hold on to him this time. But I love what he brings to the table. Above average hit, good plate discipline. We're starting to see the power tick up a little bit more, where all of a sudden it might be closer to that 40 than the 30 that he entered the season with. Above average speed. Where does he play defensively is the question. I think he can clearly play a passable second base. They're trying him in center field, where I love the athleticism, and he's made some athletic grabs, but the reads are rough. He's not played a ton of outfield. And the arm action's funky, but it can work out there just fine. The arm isn't great, though, so that doesn't help. But I think you can either be a guy that ends up settling into left field and playing a decent left, can settle into second base, play a decent enough second base. But what I love is the above average hit, above average plate discipline, potential for like fringy to close enough to average power, and just a well-rounded kind of grinder profile that makes him a high probability big leaguer to me.
Dude, he's freaking balling right now in Cedar Rapids. Like it's crazy what he is doing right now. And much like Steer, you figure the defense out later if you're hitting like this. And Keaschall in 39 games with Cedar Rapids right now, slashing 319, 442, 515. That's a 956 OPS, 5 homers, 13 for 14 in the stolen base department, 25 walks, 25 punch outs in 39 games. I mean, this is totally Steer right now.
Yeah. And it's funny, like I didn't even think about it, honestly, until I started just introing him right now. I'm like, wait a second. This reminds me of Spencer Steer, because I loved Steer when he was with the Twins too, for a lot of the same reasons. Yeah. I mean, the contact rates are great. You mentioned just kind of impacting the game across the board, elevating consistently now too. I dove into some of the mechanical adjustments. I put out a little thing. He didn't get a whole thread, but he was part of a larger thread on Twitter. Nice. In college, he was a lot more in his quads, and his hands were in a more difficult position to get into his slot. And he was almost like too much into his legs, to where it was like, you can almost get stuck there. Now he got a little bit better posture. He's more into his backside and less in that quad, which we've talked about a lot, honestly, in the last few episodes. And his hands are higher. And it seems like he's in a much more comfortable position to just, I think, produce more power, more force, and get to where he needs to be and elevate more. because when you're in those quads, and Kobe Mayo talked about it on the episode as well, like it becomes harder to control your body and you're a little bit less powerful. So it seems like he's more into his backside now. The hands are in a better position to enter the zone earlier and enter the zone with a little bit more force. And he seems to be repeating all of his pre-swing moves better. All of a sudden, the exit velocities are up. So again, I could see this being closer to 45 power if he continues on this trajectory. I think he's just going to be more of that doubles over everything guy, which is fine with the amount of contact he makes and the approach that he has. We're talking about a chase rate of 16%. And so far this year, contact rates that are easily plus. But what stands out to me is the EVs have been better than they were with metal because of just what he's been able to do with his mechanics to tap into a bit more juice. His EVs are better than they were with metal not that long ago, a year and change ago. Already has a home run this year, 109 to dead center. I don't think he hit a single ball that hard with metal last year. So he's clearly hitting the ball harder. He's clearly hitting the ball as consistently as ever too. So when you add power and it doesn't come at the expense of really any contact at all, if anything, the contact's gotten better too, sign me up for that. We'll figure out where the defensive home is. He's a good athlete. He was I think an all-state wrestler as well. So he's strong and he moves well. He's going to figure out a defensive spot.
That's sneaky a good one. Like wrestling background is good. I love my quarterbacks. You know, I love my quarterbacks. I love my old basketball players. And I know you like your basketball players too. You were Matt Manning trained, but like I love my basketball players. I love my quarterbacks because those are innate coordination skills that like you develop in that sport and they translate immediately. Wrestling is another one where it's like, you know, that guy's twitchy. Yep. So like that's good. I like that background.
You know what else I like? Converted shortstops to the mound. I know a lot of people like that too.
That was a really good transition. A minus, maybe A.
Yep. Thank you.
Yeah.
Charlee Soto, shortstop, almost all of his amateur career. And right at the tail end, okay, Charlie, you're 6'4", like 210, 220. Shortstop might not be in the cards for you. You're not moving as well as you used to, but you do throw 98. So maybe we should try on the mound. They do that. And it looked really good on the mound. What's amazing to me, dude, is like, how do these guys who just started pitching like late in high school, same with Jackson Jobe, he was a shortstop too. Yeah. How do these guys just have a feel to throw a changeup like this right away? With Jobe, it was more the slider. But Soto immediately, let's focus on the mound. And he's like, all right, well, let me just spin this unbelievable changeup. And that's exactly what he's had going for him right away. The fastball shape, leads a little bit to be desired. And it doesn't matter as much because he throws 95 to 97 and can run it up to 99. And I think at 18 years old now, you can easily see a guy that will be throwing triple digits or touching it eventually. But is it not remarkable to you, Jack, that like he already has this innate feel for a changeup?
So it's really cool and it's rare, but I will say like I'm not jaw on the floor surprised, and I'll tell you why. I think I speak so much about athleticism on the mound and like how important being an athlete and being yourself is on the hill. If you're a really good shortstop like a Jobe, like a Soto, chances are you have insane feel for your body and you can feel your fingertips. Like there's really not that drastic of a difference between feeling the ball off your fingertips on a throw from short or a throw from third and feeling it on the hill. And like, I think that guy might just feel everything, and changeups are a feel pitch. I just think like athleticism gets confused with speed and vertical leap and things like that, where you think NFL combine athleticism. Athleticism is really understanding your body and knowing how to maximize it. And I think that Soto might be that guy. I think Jobe is probably that guy too, where it's just like, there may not be a rhyme or reason mechanically to why that changeup is so good. He's just like, I feel it off the edge of my middle finger and it does what I want it to do. And like, that's okay. Sometimes it's as simple as that. And we need to find the rocket science way to describe it, but they don't. Yeah. They just need to throw it.
Well, you kind of spurred a thought in my mind, which is like, when we talk about, we don't talk about it, but when people talk about wide receivers in the draft, right? Ability to like control their body and adjust in the air and things like that. That's what I see with Soto, where like he'll throw a bad changeup and then recalibrate and throw a good one right after that. And you're talking about just kind of like the physical awareness and feel for your body. I think also just the ability to repeat the moves. And with Soto, I very much want to encourage people, fans, Twins fans, to not look at the results this year. And I know that can be difficult, but he's 18 and he is still so young in the pitching scheme of things that I think he's still kind of feeling out what works and feeling out just exactly who he's going to be as a pitcher. Because right now the fastball shape leaves a bit to be desired, as we mentioned, and it's more of that like arm side run, a little bit more of the sinker, and that can get redundant with the changeup. And then he's got the slider that has actually flashed and looks like it's been pretty good. But then he's also got this cutter variation that, like everybody else has, that looks like that could be a pitch for him. So it seems like he's still feeling everything out, as he should be. He literally is 18. But I think right now, I wouldn't be surprised if the Twins are just saying, Charlie, we don't care what happens out there in low A. Just go out there and work on what we've been telling you to work on and feel some things out, and we'll go from there. And that's why I think with Soto, you just gotta look at the pitches in a vacuum. You got to look at the kid on the mound and worry about results later, because when you see what he could be capable of doing and what he already is capable of doing on the mound, it's rare. I'll wait. I don't care what the numbers are. I'm curious, like what is a successful season for Charlee Soto in your mind, Jack?
Get through it healthy and, land your heater for strikes and land your changeup for strikes. I think those are the three things that I want to see. Like, I want to see him hit the development list, but not the injured list. Like, I'm sure they're going to shut him down as we hit the bottom of that suspension bridge, like right around the All-Star break. I bet he spends 2 weeks on the dev list. So, like, I want to see him throw in April, which he already did, and I want to see him throw in late August, maybe first couple days of September, which I hope he does. And then I want to see him land that heater consistently, and I want to see the changeup strike rate be there as well.
I'm with you. I mean, the breaking balls will come, and he's already flashed them. So, like, those will come, even if they're not here this year. I know that they'll come along and be good for him, especially being able to work through that in the offseason. And I have a good feeling that he can do those things exactly. And so far, the fastball strike rate has been there for him, 68% clip so far this season. Speaking of throwing strikes, no one's doing it better than Zebby Matthews right now. Zebulon has been on another level. And I think people have no idea where to rank this guy. I do. 6th. He is for real, man. Like, I didn't for a minute, and I was like, I honestly even just peel back the curtain, like reach out to some people I respect in the industry, just of like, that working in different roles of like, what do you think? Scouts even. And I'm just like, am I getting a little bit ahead of myself here? The answer was pretty much no. I think I'm a little bit ahead of maybe some of the other people that I reached out to, but the consensus was like, no, it's not outrageous to have this guy as, the third best arm in the system. And I mean, you look at the stuff, of course, nothing jumps off the page, but all of a sudden, like, things are starting to get close to jumping off the page. 8th round pick because of his pitchability, throws a ton of strikes. And that's always what's been the bread and butter for him in Western Carolina when he played with Justice Bigby, another friend of the program. But Zebby Matthews, man, what stands out to me the most with him is you have strike throwing, filling up the zone, and then all of a sudden you tick up to 95, 96, and you're getting 18 inches of vert. And that also uptick just goes across the entire arsenal, where the slider is now multiple ticks harder. The cutter is now 89 to 91. The changeup has not really been there for him too much. But what stands out to me, and from just like the arsenal across the board, is, okay, yeah, if you don't have that wipeout pitch, you now have a fastball that sits in the mid-90s. You now have a slider that, from a shape perspective, wasn't disgusting, but was good, and now it's harder and tighter in the mid-80s. And now you have that cutter that is 89, 91 that you can put wherever you want. And now we're seeing that pitchability still shine through. When your stuff ticks up that much and you're still throwing strikes with the best of them, that is really hard to do. I think that's a really underrated aspect of it too. Your pitches can get a little bit sharper and bigger, and he's still throwing more strikes than anybody in baseball at any level, anywhere on the planet. Yeah. I don't think there's anyone on planet Earth that is playing in a professional setting that is throwing more strikes than Zebby Matthews right now.
So you just told me something about you with this. You're never going to hand out a 7 in the command grade, ever.
I just need to see him do it over a little bit longer of a time. But yeah.
When does it become a 70?
70 command seems like impossible.
So 80 is impossible. I'm with that. Like, for sure. 80 is impossible unless this guy goes a full season without walking a single soul. Like, I'm totally with you. But like, if this guy isn't a 70, then what is a 70?
That's fair.
Because it's not like this is an, crazy out of body experience. Like at Western Carolina, this guy, what was it? He threw 183 innings. He walked 30. That's a walk and a half per 9. In the minor league so far, 142 and 2/3, 0.9 walks per 9. 142 and 2/3, he walked 15. Like, this is 70 command, man.
Yeah,
and
you win.
Thank you.
I will update it when we're done recording. It's funny. I was like going back and forth, and I don't know. I get skeeved out when I start to throw a 70 on the command.
Like he has no walks in what, like 35 innings.
43 strikeouts, 0 walks.
That's the thing. So like I would actually understand it a bit more if like in 34 1/3 he had punched out 25 and walked none, because it's like, oh, he's just filling out the strike zone, and like occasionally guys are just taking a weird one at the knees, or like they're just swinging over the top of one. No, like he's punching out 11 hitters per 9. He's just hasn't walked anyone yet. So it's the Kirby. I think it's why people love Kirby, because not only does Kirby not walk anyone, but he can strike people out too. Like it's not like he's 7 Ks per 9. He's 10. And that is, I think, the separator and what pushes Zebby Matthews to 6.
100%. And I think the changeup was the area that, well, I think I have the 65 future. I think it docked him down a half point because the changeup just hasn't been there at all for him. 22, or he's thrown 36 this year, and 22 have been balls. So but like if he scraps that, his strike rate across the rest of his arsenal is like 74%.
There you go.
So that is the one interesting avenue, is like maybe he kind of minimizes the usage of that changeup further and just kind of eliminates it, because you're talking about a fastball strike rate of 76%. We're talking about a slider strike rate of 65% and a cutter at 74%. But what stands out also is that it's inside, outside, up, down, all 4 quadrants, backdooring cutters, tying you up, fastball wherever he wants it. And that's why I think this stuff is going to play. Fastball is probably, if he holds 96, which is what he's averaging now, he's 95.7 so far this year, then it's a plus fastball. I have 55 present, 60 future, just because I want to see him hold it. This is an uptick that's happened more just this year. So if he can hold this uptick, then I think we'll feel confident that it's a 60 with that fastball.
Yeah.
When you've got that with the slider and the cutter, you're kind of missing that vertical pitch. He's got a curveball that he mixes in, and that's why I'd want to see the changeup. I want to see something just downer a little bit more. Sometimes the slider can do that. I would love a downer pitch just to mix in there, because the fastball does have sneaky ride. But when you're throwing strikes like this, such a high floor arm, I'd put my life on this guy being a big league starter as long as he stays healthy. And beyond that, I mean, you've got a guy that I still think has a little bit more upside, as you mentioned, like the Kirby thing. If he finds another pitch and just continues to learn how to use his arsenal. All right, Marco Raya. I mean, we've been talking about this guy for a long time. It feels like Tink Hence. And it's funny because they're both 2020 draftees, guys that fell. Raya a little bit further, 4th round pick. Both have been treated very carefully. The training wheels have been taken off at Tink Hence of the Cardinals. Raya, we're starting to maybe see it happen a bit more. I understand it, because the second he was drafted, I think not long after, ended up dealing with a little bit of a shoulder issue. Nothing crazy, but it was just enough to delay his pro debut. And he's 5'11", 6 foot. Yeah, as a righty, there's a lot of reliever risk there, and I think they've wanted to manage his workload very carefully. When you see a guy that's got an above average heater, a plus slider, might be better than that, like above average cutter, a good curveball, yeah, I'm going to want to treat that guy carefully too. And that's exactly what they've been doing. But when he has been on the mound, and whether it be 3-4 inning spurts, he's been spectacular. I know he's coming off of probably one of his worst outings that we've seen, but he's also pitching in the Texas League, and it was in Tulsa. He walked 4. He hasn't really done that. I don't think he's walked 4 since midway through last year. So, I mean, it happens. But overall, we're looking at an arsenal here, a fastball that can hover around 94, 95, with some cut ride to it. Can flatten out at times, and that's where it gets hit hard. But when he's got the cut ride, it's really playing. You've got a slider that is could be devastating. I think a borderline plus pitch. The curveball is gross too. I think it gets really underrated in his arsenal. Downer bite to it. That's kind of what I wish Matthews had with that downward action that gets lefties to swing right over it. And then a changeup that's kind of been, not really there for him this year, which is nice that he has the curveball because that's that wipeout pitch for lefties, but also works for righties. And then the cutter that he's added this year, he's added this, like everybody else, 89 to 91 mile an hour cutter. And man, that's been disgusting. He's even run it up to 93, and hitters have had no chance with that pitch in a lot of points when he's locating it. It can back up on him too a little bit, and that's when he can run into trouble. But when he's spotting that thing, it's gross. So he's got that slider cutter that both I think can be plus pitches. The slider already is. And the curveball flashes that as well. When you got 3 breaking balls like that, and then you've got the fastball that can sit in the mid-90s, at least sit 93, 94, and maybe longer stretches, that's a big league arsenal, man. He's still just 21.
Yeah, I actually think he's an old 20.
21.
Oh, yeah, old 21. Okay, you're right. Good call. I was trying to think about like play on the name. Raya is like the celebrity dating app in a bunch of big urban areas. And here's what I settled on. Tell me if it's good.
No.
Much like the dating app Raya, he's not that available. Is that okay? Like, is that good?
Yeah, because Raya, you got to get approved.
Yeah, and like it's pretty. How about this? The looks are pretty exclusive. Is that good? That's good. Come on, that's pretty good. That's like B plus, A minus. The looks are pretty exclusive because it's not an availability thing. Like he made 22 starts last year. Problem is, like he was averaging about 3 innings per start. So the looks are limited. I love the Tink Hens comp because very similar. Young guy, smaller guy, big league arsenal. Just like the leash is still on. The leash is still very tight. So like, let's take the leash off at this point. And Tink's leash is off at this point. Like Tink is not being limited much at all anymore.
No.
And I know that there is some sporadic limitation, but at the end of the day, man, like if he's going to go 6, he's going to go 6. Raya's not there yet. And I just wonder why.
Yeah, that's the thing is I get it up until like now. Now it should be all right. Yeah, we got to let it go. We got to see what he's got here now. And that's the part that's been a little bit weird for me is like, is there a little bit more behind the scenes? And I don't like to speculate on those types of things. And he hasn't missed any time. So like, it wouldn't be like, oh, I'm not feeling great. Like, let's just go forward. They would never do that. They would shut you down immediately and lock you away before you get back on the mound if you're talented as Raya is and the way teams are nowadays. So it's just, it's unique. And I'm hoping that in the second half of the season, maybe they start to stretch him out. My hope is that they're just staggering the innings now, and then they're going to cut him loose in the back end so that he can be available the whole year. Otherwise, I mean, if they do a whole nother year of this, it'll start to be pretty frustrating because I get it up until now.
And if they do a whole nother year of that, they only have a year to watch a full sample before they have to make a 40-man decision on it.
Yep.
Think about that. Like he was a 2020 draftee, and yeah, he's a high school guy, but after the 25 season, like you're telling me that the only time you're going to see him full bore before you have to make a Rule 5 decision on him is one season?
Yeah.
That can't happen.
No. And of course they're going to instantly protect him, right? But like it is absurd to only have one season of him actually like stretched out as a starter before you have to add him to the 40-man. I think that is a good point as well. I love the cutter being added in here though, because the fastball, again, like it can flatten out on him at times and it gets hit hard. And now being able to go to this cutter pretty consistently and have that work against lefties and righties is going to be another wrinkle that I think is really, really tough for hitters, whether you're a lefty or a righty. This is wipeout stuff. And this is a guy that could be an easy middle of the rotation starter. I think flashes of potentially a fringe number 2 type if we see him stretched out and hold it. I think he ultimately settles more into the middle of a rotation if he's able to handle the bigger workload. But I mean, the stuff is you just don't find a guy that can rip breaking balls like this. And I think the curveball even has a little bit more potential and could end up being an above average pitch comfortably.
Got you.
Much older, but a guy that we've really seen perform now in AAA and get stretched out even more is David Festa. And Festa we saw in person in spring training. And I didn't love how he looked in that outing. And it kind of prompted me to just monitor more closely through the beginning of this season, and he's looked so much better and just looked like a really, really good arm. He's got you with the fastball, the slider, and the changeup that all are really good pitches for him. And the fastball that was the problem for Festa last year, was he did not have good fastball command, really struggled to locate it. And when you're a guy that struggles to locate your fastball and has a nasty slider, you start to really lean on that slider too much.
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly what was happening last year. He was still really good, but I saw way too much slider usage for a guy that you want to profile as a starter. Now the fastball, he's commanding it better, and he's getting more vert, and he's commanding the changeup better, which has been a pitch in stretches that has been disgusting for him. So having that changeup back, which is comfortably above average, having that slider going for him, which he can manipulate to a harder pitch and can be more cutterish, but is also wipe out, borderline plus. And now a fastball that was more of a above average pitch before, now getting 2 more inches of vert, I think is easily a plus pitch.
Yeah.
This is an arsenal that I think makes him an incredibly high probability big leaguer. And he'd probably be up there now if they needed him. They're pretty filled up in the rotation. We talked about it in the past where he's the first guy up if they need somebody. 6'6". I love the big body. I love the fact that he's getting whiff in the zone across the 3 pitches. I love that he gets chased with the 3 pitches. And just to see the fastball command improve is just a huge wrinkle in this thing. And it sets the changeup up better, and it sets the slider up better. And getting more vert is just a good tunneling effect with everything. So I think he's in a good spot now. And I think the walk rate, I'm curious what you think, Jack. To me, I think it's more ABS related than actual command. Because when I watch, it doesn't look like a guy has a 13% walk rate.
No, not at all. I think AAA walk numbers, like, you don't have to throw them away, but I think they're totally skewed at this point. Like, Cade Horton can't not walk a guy to save his life at this point. I'm like, what's going on here? It's just silly with what's going on with the ABS. And, obviously, like, we can have a long form conversation about that later. And I know we've already dipped our toes into that, but I will tell you, like, I'm going to push back on the big body thing. Seeing him in person, he looks like he might blow down if there's a strong wind. Like,
yeah, I should say big, long frame.
Long frame. His arms never end. He's Kevin Durant adjacent. It's unique, man. Like, he and Ben Brown are kind of the same to me, where I'm like, you have a very unusual build to your body. And, like, that's an okay thing for a pitcher because unusual plays. I'm happy that I saw a live look of him when he threw an Indy where he cruised. If he struggled, like after he struggled in spring training when we watched him, I'd be like, no, what's going on here? But I watched him manhandle this Indians lineup, and it was really impressive because it was so low effort, and it just felt like he was out weirding them, and he was spinning it away from righties, and he was, buzzing heaters on lefties, and it was just a very in control outing to watch. And that really convinced me that he can be a starting pitcher in the major leagues.
I love that you say that because, well, first of all, the Lank machine that he has, the limbs flying at you and that kind of inverted like turn that he has makes it really hard.
Dude, you're not seeing that ball until it's 50 feet away.
And he made a little bit of a mechanical change and I wrote about it in the write-up, and you can dive into that, because I don't want to take too much time. We're already going long here, but there's some mechanical adjustments that helped him there too. But I was worried that he'd be one-dimensional, especially after we saw him. Like, Jack, how many sliders did he throw in a row when we were watching him in spring training? Maybe he was just trying to find the feel for that because it's spring training. But I was like, man, like this is a lot of sliders.
Always heater, man.
Right. Yeah, and now the changeup though, he's had starts this year where he's got more whiffs with the changeup than the slider. I'm like, okay, that's a big league starter then. So yeah. I think he's clearly a big league starter. He's the next man up in that rotation. High probability back end guy. I think you got, fringe 3 upside here.
Yeah.
Number 3, guy that we probably don't need to spend too much time on because we talked about him a lot and he hasn't played really at all this year. Brooks Lee, shortstop, currently on the IL in AAA. This is one of my favorite swings, by the way, this home run off of Emmanuel Rodriguez, if you're watching on YouTube. I love the bat drop behind him. His lefty swing is so much better than his righty swing. It's just to me, it's not even close, but it's okay. Like he makes enough contact from the right side. It's like, okay, we'll take that over left on left. We're talking plus hit. We're talking ability to play, average defense or better on the left side of the infield. Of course, you can play second if you wanted him to. The approach is the thing that I think will really be a separator for him. The power, he'll be fringe average. He can hit you 15. Maybe in a good year, he hits you 20 in the right environment. I think he's going to be more 10 to 15 with a lot of doubles. But with a plus hit tool as a switch hitter and the power not being, 25 homers, walk, please. you'd think he'd be the type of profile that would walk. Unfortunately, he's been pretty aggressive. And that's been what's held him back, I think, a little bit from reaching his ceiling. But everything else, like it's hard to poke a hole in the game, right? It's solid defense on the left side, plus hit, switch hitter, enough impact, to be an everyday player. I think for me, the big thing is the plate discipline. And can we get on base at a little bit higher clip? And then, of course, what I can't evaluate is health. That's why he slipped in the draft. That's why he's on the shelf right now. That's the other wrinkle in this whole thing.
He is wonderfully boring. He's boring in the best way. I don't derive overwhelming enjoyment from watching him, but he will never make Twins fans sad. And
I would say you would derive enjoyment if you were his general manager and he's on the field.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's like, oh, I'll just pencil him in anywhere. It's Semien going to Bochy and saying like, hey, just put me in the lineup every day. I'll tell you if something changes. Like that's. And listen, that's not Brooks Lee right now. And that is, again, the big knock. But similar to that, it's like Marcus Semien will never make Bruce Bochy's heart rate go up. If Brooks Lee is available, he will never make anyone in that Twins organization their heart rate go up, ever. And that's like a great thing. He can hold his own at short. And I know that was a conversation that we had actually like kind of longer form last year after I got to watch him for a week in person. I was like, you know what? This guy is better at short than I think he's getting credit for. I think a lot of people just immediately assumed that he was going to move off, right?
Yeah.
But like,
or like that. Yeah. It just, I think a lot of people were kind of sliding him over to third, and now that's going to put so much more pressure on the power.
Yeah, no. And it's like, he can hold his own at short. The right guy to move to third, they already moved to third in Royce Lewis. Now, problem is there are three guys on the left side of the infield, and Correa and Lewis and Lee, they all have this certain issue when it comes to games played. So like that's the big thing. But man, when he's on the field, there are no concerns for me.
And I mean, he could be superb at second base if he fits in there for you. And the fact that he can play all three of those spots, again, the hit tool is easily plus. Is the approach continues to get better, because he did seem to cut down on the chase at the back end, and that might be something that can kind of get back to where it needs to be. Then you got a really well-rounded offensive profile, but just a guy that just you can just sleep so soundly knowing that he's in your lineup every day if he's able to stay in. And for me, it's just all about the health with him and that approach. But that's really it. And that leads us into number 2, Emmanuel Rodriguez, outfielder who just continues to look better and better. And I think a guy that, we came into this season, man, we pushed him really aggressively in our preseason top 100. He was right up there in the top 30, and a guy that I know that came with some risk, and we had to say, okay, well, the risk reward proposition here, right? Like the hit tool is below average to fringy, but you have a guy that has monster power. Is he going to stick in center? That was kind of a big sticking point too. And now we're seeing one, I think he can absolutely stick in center field, and that's a huge wrinkle in this thing. And I've always liked the defense. I thought maybe he gets a little bit bigger and maybe he moves off, but I think there was a lot of eagerness to just move him to a corner immediately. And now I think we're seeing a guy that can play an average center field. And, we had a 40 present in center field. Now I think you could put a 50 present. I think you could probably update that and put that to 50. The plate discipline has always been there, but he's been too passive in the past. And I think when people saw the strikeout rates, it was like, oh, well, if he's striking out 25, 30% of the time in high A, what's he going to do in double A? It's going to be 35. It's going to be egregious. No, because I think a big part of it was he would get so deep into counts because he was passive, and then one swing and miss or one bad call and you're done. That's it. Strike 3. So now he is still very patient, but picking his spots to do some damage, making still a little bit more contact, and drawing walks now with the best of them, striking out at a reasonable clip for the amount of power that he generates, and just looks like a much more well-rounded player. I think we're starting to see like the final form of what Emmanuel Rodriguez can be, which is, that Max Muncy type of profile, but in center field, which that's an all-star. And that's a 4-5 win player. If you're doing Max Muncy type of things, maybe with a little bit better field to hit, and you're playing center field, you're a very valuable player.
I just want to watch your facial reactions when I give you these numbers over the course of his minor league career to this point. He's played 215 minor league games. Emmanuel Rodriguez has a 29.8% K rate, so 30% K rate. Makes sense. Walk rate, 22.1%. A 22.1% walk rate. An OPS of 925. What do you think his WRC plus is in his minor league career?
155?
157. Great guess.
Woo!
157, man. Like, you can punch out at a 30% clip and still have a 157 WRC plus. Is he going to walk 22% of the time in the major leagues? No. Can he walk 15% of the time in major leagues? Yes. Does that put him near the top in Major League Baseball? Yes.
Twins fans, if you love Edouard Julien, imagine he can play center field.
Oh, and like hit for more juice.
Yeah, he hits the ball harder. We're talking about a 90th percentile so far this year of 109. That's one of the best figures in the minor leagues.
Come on now.
The issue, at times, again, was the passiveness, just getting deeper into these counts. And that resulted in more Ks. But the swinging strike rate, so the general whiff rate per pitch was never high because of the way that he was able to, mitigate, I think. And when he pulled the trigger, it was a pitch that he felt like he could do damage on. I felt like, okay, you got to pull the trigger a little bit more. And we've seen him do that in the right spots. It's really hard to argue against him at this point. You could look at the K rate and say, historically, models say if you strike out 25% at this level, you're going to do this at this level. The nuance to this situation is that he is going to be the same guy at every level. I really do believe that. Maybe in the big leagues, there'll be a bit of an acclimation process just because pitchers are going to get on him a little bit differently. But I think he's pretty much going to be the same guy at every level. He's going to strike out around the upper 20s. He's going to walk at a high clip, and he's going to do crazy damage. And now that he's playing a good center field, he's one of the better prospects in baseball. He's a top 20 guy in our update without a doubt.
Damn.
Last but not least, can't add too much to Walker Jenkins here because he has not played. He is going to be back soon, though. I'm pretty sure he's already getting closer. It was a hammy thing again. It was quad before the season. You know that the Twins are going to be extremely careful with him, as they should be. But this is one of my favorite hitters in professional baseball. We're talking plus hit, above average power, a decent feel for the zone. Another guy that could play center field. If you move him to right, he'd be very good there. He's an above average runner. And it's just one of the best swings you're going to find at the lower levels. I mean, look how simple this thing is, man. Like, it's a slight load back. His hands don't move much. It's crazy bat speed. It's long through the zone. It's everything you want. It's everything you want from a swing. And he's a big boy that I think is going to still tap into more power. He could give you that elusive plus hit and power combination, which if he's sticking in center, that's potential number one prospect in baseball. But even in a corner, that's still potential one of the best prospects in baseball.
He's top 10 already. And with graduations, he's going to thrust. It's tough with guys in the top 10 because you've got graduations in front of him, right? Like, you have a ton of guys that just graduated right in front of him. Now it becomes like, okay, does he stay at 7? Do guys bunny hop him because he hasn't played so far this year?
Yeah,
or
that's going to be a headache and a half.
And I don't want to make you do that right now. You have 9 days to do it, 10 days to do it because June 1 is the first update. So good luck, man. My texts are open. My DMs are open. Talk. So,
I'm going to be hitting you up way too much.
Have fun with that.
It's at 1 a.m, so you don't answer till the morning. But I think with Jenkins, you look at what he did last year, 26 games. Yeah, just right into his pro career, 38 hits across each level. You saw the power, but also he hit 373. But then when you saw some of the things that he was doing at the complex before the season started, more impact, hitting the ball harder. And if he's doing that, I do think he can stick in center field. But if he's adding more impact now too, he just turned 19. He's going to continue to get more physical. I do think he gets to that plus hit power. And maybe the game power ends up settling more in the 55 range where he's 25 to 30. But I still think he's pretty much plus hit, fringe plus power, and you got above average wheels, the ability to play a premium position. As long as he continues to show that he can draw some walks as well too, and he can get a little expansive, but he was doing that because he was hitting everything. I really think this guy has top prospect in baseball potential if he can stay on the field. And so far, just I'm not gonna label him as having injury issues yet because I think that the quad thing could have very easily tied in with the hamstring thing that we saw. He was left out of the. They scratched him late in the spring breakout game because of a quad thing. And then, he of course wanted to be on the field the first day, goes out to trying to make a big play in center field. I think he made the grab and then the hammy went. I'm going to chalk that up as tied in together. They're going to be careful with him. He comes back. If he plays the rest of the season, fine. I don't think you have anything to worry about, even though the Twins do have some weird injury voodoo. But overall, I think you got to feel really good about the fact that this guy fell into your lap. And I know it's been tough because he hasn't played yet this year. He's going to be back soon. And when he's on the field, I think he has a chance to, again, show that hit and power with the ability to play center. One of my favorite swings. I think he's going to be a number one prospect at some point.
Yeah, man. I hope so. It's funny. Like, there are two organizations in baseball. We talk about injury voodoo, and it's not fair. But if any organization has injury voodoo, it is the Twins and another National League. Who is it?
Twins and another in the National League.
Let me give you a hint. What am I tapping right now?
Your shoulder.
Come on.
Who would it be?
Arizona, man.
Oh,
they've got shoulder voodoo going on there.
They do have shoulder voodoo. You're right.
So Arizona has shoulder issues and Minnesota has availability issues.
Yeah. Oh, hopefully Walker Jenkins is not one of those guys, because if he's on the field, again, I think he's one of the best in the game, and he's gonna have time to climb quickly. But he'll have enough time he's going to climb quickly, but he's going to have enough time to also, I think, be that number one guy, because it's going to be level by level by level. And ultimately, most of the guys in front of him are going to graduate. But also just looks the part, good things on the makeup. Again, hard to poke a hole in his game. Yeah. That'll do it for this episode. Jack has a game to call Wednesday, a little matinee there. So I'm going to let you
Horton,
go.
Baby.
Ooh, looking forward to hearing the report back on that one. So we will talk to you on either Thursday or Friday. Got some fun stuff in the cards. We have a few different options of what we're going to do with the episode. So either way, it's going to be creative and fun. So keep an eye out for that. As always, thank you for listening. Look forward to talking prospects with you later this week.